Okay, actually, the recording starts now. Okay, now why I'm recording? Because several of your classmates told me that they have other appointments. With proof, of course, right? With proof that they have some other engagement, so that they cannot attend today's lesson, right? That's why I'm recording this lesson so that they can review the lesson. Now, don't worry. This video would only be a private video. It would not be a public video. Okay, so only those with the link can view this video. Okay, so do not worry about you. Oh, so no, don't worry too much. Okay, now it's 9:04, so I suggest we can get started now. All right, now for today, which is probably our last lesson on chapter 9, we are going to do something very boring, which is we continue with our past paper practice. Now this time, we are going to focus on the short questions and the long questions, right? Now, so for those of you who are using iPad, right, good for you, right? For those of you who are not using an iPad, now it's better if you get your paper and pens ready, right? Because today we are going to draw quite a lot of graphs. OK，好嘛，好啦，咁開始啦。Now here, let's go to page 16 of your notes, right? Let's look at 2010 section A, question 1. OK，嗱，2010年啊 we are talking about the year when I take my A level. OK, not CE, when I take my A level. 係嘛？所以呢個都差唔多 almost the end of CE examination. OK，好嘛，我睇啦。1 month after the first phase implementation of an environmental levy. OK， 嗰陣時啱啱收膠袋稅都好耐之前嚟講嗰下膠袋稅。OK， plastic bag levy. We are talking about quite a long time ago already, right? An increase in the quantity sold, okay, of non-woven reusable bag 嗰啲可以重用膠袋 which are not subject to the levy was reported. Okay. Now, based on the above information, we need to explain the change of total revenue. 好啦，嗱，首先我哋慢慢嚟，都幾多資訊啊。Okay. Now, first of all, here it is asking about total revenue. Now, remind yourself. Okay. Remind yourself when we talk about total revenue, we are talking about P times Q, QT. Okay. 我哋講緊 quantity transacted times the price of the non-woven reusable bags. Okay, now let's think about it, right? Before we draw the graph and do the actual explanation, let's do some brainstorming. 我哋做少少 brainstorming 先。你話阿 Sir， 而家究竟發生緊乜嘢事啊？係嘛 ？Now it has a environmental levy on the plastic bag. So what is the relationship between plastic bag and non-woven reusable bag, right? 嗱，我諗大家都知道㗎啦。嗱 remember, right? The point is plastic bags and non-woven reusable bags are 嗱，記住一知道啊 substitutes。係嘛？佢哋係替代品 substitutes, right? Now, therefore, 係咪啊 ？With as plastic bags becomes more expensive due to the tax, right? What happens? 嗱，小心啲寫啊 ！We say the demand for the reusable bags would increase. OK， 嗱，你唔好亂寫啊，係個 demand for reusable will increase， 唔係 price， 唔係 quantity demanded， 係 demand because both of them would increase. OK， 好嘛，好啦，嗱 since now it is asking the total revenue, so make sure, OK, make sure you mention as demand increases, what happens? Both price and quantity transacted of the reusable bags would increase. Therefore, total revenue would increase. Okay, so this is the explanation part. Okay, the explanation part. We have not drawn the diagram, obviously, right? Now, so let me pause here for around maybe 30 seconds in case you need to copy or do a screen cap. OK， 好嘛？嗱，3秒之後我哋畫圖啦。Now remember, this question asks you to explain with the aid of a diagram. Therefore, you need to write the words, not just draw the diagram. You need to write the words. 係要寫㗎 ，OK？ Meanwhile， 我畫咗少少嘢先。Okay, 10 more seconds.喂，未抄晒啲 screen cap 咗去 screen cap。Okay, now let's look at the diagram. What's going on? Okay, I'll forward. Sorry. Okay, now obviously, remember in exam, when you draw the demand supply diagram, right? Remember, plastic bag QD decrease or not? Now some of you ask, do you need to write in your explanation? Do you need to write the plastic bag? The QD decreases, right? Because here you see we become more expensive. Now, if you can write down as well, right? But normally, right? Since according to the textbook, right, when the price increase, we know that the QD would decrease, right? Now, therefore, for this particular question, it is fine if you miss out the QD part, right? But for some other question, it is not. For example, what if the demand for plastic bag changes？OK， 咁就大件事啦，咁就唔係 P 升 Q 跌啦，係 P 升 Q 升或者 P 跌 Q 跌啦。In those cases, make sure you written carefully. It is the quantity of plastic bag drop. For this particular question, price is fine, but normally, right? Normally we stick to quantity. OK， 好嘛 ？Normally we stick to quantity. OK， 好啦，我翻返去先啊。A good question. Thank you for asking. Right? 好啦，嗱翻嚟呢度啦。Now remember in exam, right? 係嘛 ？To play safe, you always write the title. Okay, we are talking about the market of the non-woven reusable bags, right? Now, obviously, always start with our starting point of the demand and supply, original demand, original supply, right? Now then, here, okay. Here, we have P1, we have Q1. Okay, hold on. Now we said the demand for reusable bags would increase because the substitute becomes less attractive, right? Now, therefore, an increase in demand will shift it to the right, 我哋向右移啦。Okay. 好嘛？嗱 with all this, we see that P2 would be here. 嗱，記得啦，你啲功課都冇啊，成日記住啊。Draw the arrows here to indicate how it changes, right? And Q2 here. 畫翻你箭嘴。好啦 ，now the question asks you to explain the change in total revenue. Remember, P times Q. In the graph, it will be the area, okay? Old area, here, let me write it down. Old area will be P1, Q1. While the new area will be P2, Q2.嗱，呢個我寫俾你嘅啫，考試唔使寫嘅。The important thing is the change in total revenue will be the difference between P2, Q2 and P1, Q1, which would equate to this area. In exam, you need to shade the area for me. 你係要游翻呢個 area 出嚟㗎。Okay, you need to shade its area. And then in the caption part, 你唔好游完當我明。No, you tell me besides the graph. 嗱，呢個我張紙唔夠大啦嚇。But besides the graph, you tell me this shade. What is going on? We say this is an increase in total revenue. Okay, 得唔得？嗱 ，sorry 啊 ，increase in total revenue this part. 你要寫翻㗎。In exam, when you shade things, how do I know what you are shading? 我鬼知你喺游緊啲咩啊？你唔識啊？你查咗佢啊？ That's why in every single graph, remember to put captions next to the graph. 記得啊！你唔寫翻個 caption， 我唔知你做緊啲乜嘢㗎。OK 係嘛？嗱呢個 this one at the bottom one is not needed. I just show you so that you know what's going on when you study. Yes, you can play safe. Play safe. Usually write it next to the graph as well. Okay. 通常安全啲喺個 graph 度都整埋。play safe, safeguard yourself. 你哋唔好話錯啊，記得要跟 step 做人。Okay. Always start with the D1 and S, the original situation first. 跟住先慢慢嚟，如果唔係你賴嘢嘅。Okay, let me pause for 30 more seconds. Okay, now with that said, now let's move on to the next question. Okay, 好嘛？next page. Yeah, page 17. 我哋仲有3版啫，好快啊，不過唔係一條每條都好長啊，係咪啊 ？Now here, the next year, 2011. Now this time we are talking about section B, which is long question. 所以你見啊 ，demand supply short question 又出 ，long question 又出，好近㗎。OK，好嘛？好啦 ，here let's see. In 2010, there was a boom in the property market of Hong Kong. Honestly, when is it? 係咪香港唔知點解樓市係咁升嘅啦？好神奇嘅，唔知發生咩事。好啦，佢發生咩事咧 ？Here it says hot money flowed into the property market。我哋叫熱錢啊，係咪？嗱，你唔好理佢咩錢，係嘛？總之就係有錢流入嚟。Okay, money flowed into the property market. Now, on the other hand, the government put more land up for public auction in order to curb the overheating of property market. OK，同埋佢講緊啦，喂，而家樓市過熱，於是啦， 佢放多啲地出嚟嘅。OK，again now here there are two, it asks under what condition would the price of land sold in public auction increase? OK， 好嘛，我哋望望啦。Now here in our explanation, first thing we need to mention, okay, as hot money flowed into the property market， 你要解釋呢句即係咩意思啊 ？OK， 多咗錢，記唔記得咩叫 demand 啊 ？Demand is willing and able。So more people would be willing and able to purchase。用翻啲 definition。Therefore， 哎呀 ，sorry 啊 ，purchase 好啦。Therefore， demand would increase. Demand for property. Okay, for properties would increase. OK， 嗱，你要解釋㗎。Don't just say demand increase. Why? Which sentence correspond to demand increase？ 你寫清楚邊句係話你聽 demand 升啊嘛？你唔好就咁寫哦 ，demand 上升 ，supply 上升，你撞㗎。OK， 得唔得？ So following the same logic, okay, then as more land is put, is 做乜嘢啊 ？Put up for auction, the supply of land would increase， 係咪啊？一樣啦，土地咪上升咯。OK， 好嘛？好 ，then here 嗱，但係未夠喎。Now since this question asks for what condition the price would increase， 我哋所以嗱，今次我哋特登要針對個 price 啦。OK， 好啦，我哋彈翻轉頭啊，頭先特登係唔寫嘅。As demand increases, the price of land would increase。你寫埋 demand 上升，令價格上升。Okay, since this question specifically asks for the price of land, same logic. As supply increases, the price of land would 嗱，你唔好寫 increase 啊 ，would decrease。嗱，一個升一個跌。So what is the condition? Okay, so what is the condition? Okay, the condition, like we mentioned last lesson, right? If the increase in demand is more than the increase in supply, the price of land sold would increase。寫翻清楚呢句 ，OK？ Increase in demand more than increase in supply， 你唔好寫錯啊！唔係 demand 大過 supply， 係 demand 嘅升大過 supply 嘅升啊 ，increase。OK，not demand more than supply， is increase in demand more than increase in supply。OK， 同埋你唔好懶，你阿 Sir 寫咁多嘢係咁噶啦，冇考試一份，係咪考試寫咁多嘢噶啦？OK， 得唔得 ？So here is the explanation. Now let me pause here for around 30 seconds for you to copy or screen cap. Add to the graph. Okay, as usual, let me cheat a little bit. Okay, 10 more seconds. 未抄完嘅 screen cap 佢啊。 Okay, now to the graph. Here, now again, now because of time limitation, I've already drawn the basis for you, right? 係咪啊？好啦，我哋見到啦。Now this time we are talking about land for public auction, right? 好嘛？好啦， now here, obviously, we have our D1. We also have our S1. Now I know before you stop me, 係咪？我明啊，有人話阿 Sir land 唔係打直嘅咩 ？Okay, now this time remember both should be acceptable. Okay, now because remember land, physical land are fixed in supply, but the amount of land you put up for auction is in control of the government. 政府係可以控制佢賣幾多地俾你㗎。So if the government knows they can sell more land to you to earn more money, they actually will sell more. OK， 所以政府可以拍賣嘅土地 ，OK，in this sense is actually upward sloping。如果佢覺得價唔靚可以唔賣㗎 ，they can decide to not sell if the price is too low。OK， 得唔得 ？So this time we draw an upward sloping. Obviously, if you draw a vertical up, vertical is also fine. OK， 呢個唔係重點，好冇？好嗱 ，here we have our P1, Q1 嗱，but the most important one is P1， 因為佢冇問你 Q 啊。They didn't ask you anything about the quantity, right? So it's not important. Now, in our explanation, we know that the increase in demand has to be higher than the increase in supply. So let's draw the shifts. OK， 好嘛？好啦，我哋望下啦。Let's say demand shift by this much. 我哋誇張啲啊，好嘛？ Demand shift by this much. While supply 嗱，你阿 Sir 畫圖咁誇張嘅 ？Yes, in exam remember to exaggerate your answer 係咪？誇張啲啊！你考試話誇張啲啊，冇問題㗎。OK, while supply, let's say it increase a little bit. OK, increase a little bit. Therefore, you will see that the new point would end up in here, P2. Okay, which is what we want. We want the price to increase. Then finish your graph with the Q2 here. Now, but the most important one, 呢個一定畫得清楚 because it asks you about the price, right? So in the exam, make sure you've written this very clearly. Okay, 好嘛？Now let me pause here for a while. 嗱，跟住我哋翻去個 explanation， 加多少少嘢，好唔好啊？Remember in exam, do not think that you can use different pens. 你唔好諗住唔同顏色嚟畫畫咪睇得好清楚咯。No. Remember in exam, they scan the paper using black and white. 我而家教你，我係可以攞唔同顏色咋。But you see when I draw the graph, I do not depend on the color. I depend on these exaggerations. 我係用誇張嘅方法嚟表達嘅要。Because in exam, when they're marking a paper, they won't see color. 係睇唔到㗎嚇，你唔好試啊。OK， 咁但係唔好試啊。You always depend on your drawing technique, not by color. Okay. Now let me give you 10 more seconds and then we move back to our explanation. Now, if you remember, right? If you remember last lesson, I mentioned with the aid of that diagram, we usually want to take reference to the diagram, right? Now, therefore, in your here, the explanation, right? 係咪 ？We say demand would increase。好啦，頭先我哋有講喎，係咪 demand 升邊條啊 ？D1 to D2 係咪？頭先我哋有條 D1 D2 啊嘛，係嘛 ？Price of land would increase 係咪？好啦，一樣啦。The supply of land would increase. Here we say S1 to S2 係咪？話俾人聽係個 graph 裡面嘅 S1 同 S2。The price of land would increase from where to where? P1 to P2 係咪啊？ So this is taking reference to the graph with the aid of a diagram. 呢個咪叫 with the aid of a diagram 咯。OK 好嘛 ？So remember, if you can, right? When you can draw draw the attention of the marker to the graph's reference. OK 好嘛？好咁啊時間冇多啦，我哋講得耐咗啊。好啦，嗱 next question。好啦，now this is actually the last. Now, I don't know whether this is the CE or the DSE. I think this is DSE, right? 2012 2012年呢個應該係 DSE 嚟，應該唔係會考或者唔係 A level 嚟㗎。Okay, we talk about section B. Okay, again, long questions. Question 12, part C. Okay, 好啦 the government has decided to reintroduce a home ownership scheme. Okay, or we call it HOS 係咪？跟住有期屋 in which eligible citizens can purchase a living unit under the scheme at a great discount. OK， 我都好想 OK 嗱，我成日同我老婆都講啦 ，we want to buy HOS houses as well. Unfortunately, we are not eligible. 所以香港都好折墮，你一係就賺好多錢，一係你就唔好賺咁多錢。OK，if you belong to middle class, OK，good luck. OK，good luck of not getting any aid.And not being able to get anything. Okay, I digress. 吸啖氣先，冷靜啲先，冷靜啲先。Okay, now here, let's take a look at part 1. Okay, it says with the aid of a demand supply diagram, explain how the reintroduction of HOS would cool down the private housing market. 嗱呢度有少少前提嘅。Okay, now the question before, right? Before.It says that the price was too high. Okay, it says the price was too high. Okay， 佢之前有講嘅，原來啦話個樓市啊太過旺盛啊。Okay， 好嘛 ？So here, let's see. 好嘛 ？Now, how do we explain part 1? Okay, now here it says HOS houses.嗱，但係佢而家唔係叫你，唔係問緊你居屋嘅市場喎。It's asking private housing market， 私樓同居屋 ，what is their relationship? HOS houses and private housing 又係個字咯 ，substitutes。喂，有私樓住你都唔住居屋，有居屋住你都唔住私樓啦。係咪啊？居屋大咁多 ，OK？ HOS houses and private housing are substitutes. Now this is very important, right? Now,好啦 we use your classmate suggestion as the quantity demanded, okay, or quantity transacted, okay, as the quantity transacted of HOS houses.Increases the demand for private housing would decrease. OK， 咁咪 demand 跌咯。OK， 好嘛 ，would decrease 係咪啊 ？Which would result in decrease in prices for private housing.Okay, so this is how it cool down the market， 幫佢降溫咯，係咪？原來重點就係 substitutes。Therefore, as the substitutes becomes more attractive, okay, as the substitutes becomes more attractive, the demand for private housing would decrease. As the demand decreases, hopefully the housing prices would decrease.Obviously, it was a failure. I'm sure you know, right? Look at the housing prices. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, let me pause here for 30 seconds in case you need to copy. Then we go on to the graph, which is very easy this time. All right, now let's go to the graph. Okay, now here, obviously, we have our original demand and supply. 我哋梗係又有我哋 D 同 S 啦。Now this time, right, we are talking about we need to drop the demand. Okay, we need to drop the demand. Okay, 好嘛？ Now here, now I don't remember exactly, right? I think the question, right, started with a shortage of housing. Okay, I think the question started with a shortage of housing, but let's ignore that for now. 我哋唔好理啦。For our purpose, for our studying purpose, let's assume it started at equilibrium. OK， 我記得條題目好似唔係 equilibrium 啊，不過我哋唔好理啦，好冇？我哋唔好理啦。Now here, what happens to the demand? We say that demand would decrease. Okay, we say that demand would decrease. As demand decreases, the most important is that P2 would drop. Okay, P2 would drop. Okay, now this is the most important. 最緊要係個價跌咗啊。This is what we call cooling down the private property market. 係咪嘅樓市過剩啊？咁咪要降溫咯。OK， this is the most important, the price 係咪 ？quantity 你話有冇唔緊要嘅，寫埋唔會蝕俾佢。OK， 寫埋唔會蝕嘅。But the most important, you must indicate price because it is asking how it cool down the market. Okay, obviously in reality, it's always shortage. OK， 嗱，but for our purpose 係為咗我哋呢度啫。OK， 我哋當佢係 equilibrium for our purpose. Let me take a peep， 我偷睇下佢原先係咪應該 shortage 先？我都唔記得啦，咪2012啦，太耐之前嘅題目啦。唔係2012年冇乜參考價值啊。It's too easy. That year was way too easy. Okay, now let me see. Yes, here. Take a look. Take a look. It's actually here. Okay, 嗱係咁簡單嘅咋。Okay, you see, P1 to P2. Okay, this is most important. It's just a decrease in demand. Decrease in demand. Okay, 嗱你睇住啦，係嘛 ？Under HOS and private are substitutes. Okay, bigger supply of public housing. Okay, would result in a drop in demand for private housing. Therefore, price of private housing would drop. 係咪？係咁嘅咋 ？Pretty much what we have written. Okay, pretty much what we have written. Okay, marking scheme 都係咁寫嘅啫。Okay， 得唔得 ？Alright, now let's go to the next part. Next part. Okay, now next part. 嗱呢個唔知大家識唔識啊 ？Now without using a diagram this time, so you need to be able to explain, right? 係嘛 ？We need to explain how the mortgage interest rate could be adjusted to cool down the private housing market. 嗱呢個咧又要睇大家識唔識啦。Again, what is a mortgage? A mortgage is basically here. Mortgage is the loan for private housing, basically. 買樓去借錢 ，OK？ 嗱有啲字要學識啦 ，OK？ So let's look at part B. OK? In part B, how do we answer? There are some keywords. We need to write down the mortgage interest rate is the cost of borrowing or the cost of buying houses. 咩叫 interest rate？ interest rate 係成本嚟㗎。It's the cost of borrowing to buy a house. So according to the law of demand, as the cost increases, what happens? The quantity demanded for mortgage would decrease. Okay, ceteris paribus. Law of demand 講㗎嘛，成本貴咗咪做少啲咯。OK， 好唔好啊？好，爭少少。Okay, now we explain what is mortgage. What about mortgage and private housing? Okay, I'm sure you know. Mortgage and private housing, what is their relationship? Someone answer me in the chat. 佢哋係咩關係啊？咩關係 ？Mortgage and private housing。按揭關 private housing 咩事啊？ No. Some of you say derived demand. No. 喂，記住咩叫 derived demand 啊？ Derived demand is a factor output relationship. It is not a factor output relationship. Do you need a mortgage to make a house? No. 你唔使用個按揭嚟整層樓㗎。Okay? Now, but you are close, right? As private housing and mortgage 嗱，同 derived demand 好似嘅complements 一齊用㗎嘛，係咪輔助品嚟㗎嘛 ？Okay, the demand for private housing would decrease as mortgage interest rate increases, leading to a decrease in price of private housing. OK， 咁咪 cool down 咗佢咯，係嘛 ？So main point, first of all, you need to 嗱呢個難嘅，你應該未學㗎。We call it the cost of borrowing， 借錢嘅成本。Therefore, according to the law of demand, higher the cost, lower the QD, ceteris paribus. Okay, 好啦。Then we say, as private housing and mortgage are complements, okay, they complement each other. The demand for private housing would decrease as the mortgage, the QD for mortgage decreases. Okay, now this would lead to a decrease in the price of private housing. Okay, now which unfortunately just now is happening. 近排就係啦，近排咧美國加息啊 ，OK， as the US they increase their interest rates, right? Hong Kong is experiencing an increase in the mortgage rate as well， 係咪？而家按揭啊按揭加咗息㗎 ，OK。Now therefore people will find it much harder, actually not harder but much harder to borrow， 係咪？因為喂大佬一個月可能講緊要俾多2-3千銀啊。供樓供多2-3千銀，大佬係咪 ？It's a lot，OK，it's a lot。阿 Sir 點解咁貴嘅？因為你一層樓幾百萬，你加 percent 你都唔掂啦，係咪？你加 percent 你都唔掂，你諗下係咪 ？1% would be several 10,000 幾萬蚊㗎啦，1% 幾萬蚊㗎啦 ，OK， 好嘛？1% 幾萬蚊㗎啦。So now basically, I think the US is increasing the interest rate by 0.025， 係咪？0.25 or 0.025， 我唔記得咗啦，唔記得咗加幾多個點子 ，OK， 係咪？I think it's 0.25。 OK， 好嘛？ So boys, hopefully with these few questions, now you are more familiar with how to deal with these kind of questions. Okay, 好嘛？ Now, let me pause here for 10 more seconds in case you haven't finished, right? Take a screen cap. Screen cap 佢先. Then we move on to the last 2 pages. 咁啊，剩翻15分鐘啊，要加速啊！阿 Sir 太多口水啦。Okay, let's move on to the next page. Okay, next page will be 2013 2013年嘅題目啊，係咪啊？Hong Kong government plans to introduce 港人港地啊，梁振英嘅政策啊，係咪啊？嗱 ，here the flats built under the policy can only be sold to Hong Kong permanent residents within 13 years。原來啊，個港人港地咧就講明係咩咧 ？If you buy the houses under 港人港地 ，right? In 30 years time, you can only sell the property to Hong Kong people. Meaning people with Hong Kong ID. Okay, 好嘛？嗱 compared with similar flats in the same district without selling restriction， 冇港人港地呢個selling restriction 啦。Would the price of the flat under this policy be higher or lower? Okay, we need to explain. Okay, we need to explain. Okay, 好嘛？嗱 ，because time limitation. Okay， 時間關係啊。我唔慢慢寫啦，好嘛 ？Let me show you the marking scheme. Okay, let me show you the marking scheme. 因為如果咪我哋超時超到暈㗎啦，仲有幾條啊。Okay, this is not exactly the most difficult question, so not going to waste your time here. Okay, 2013年 A2, yes, here. 哇 ，Let me show you why you should not read marking scheme on your own. 好啦，望望啦 ，here。哇，咁就3分係咪 low 㗎 ？Prices will be lower, one mark, because the number of potential buyer will drop, resulting in a lower demand for these flats. 咁就3分㗎啦，係啊，但係你睇唔睇得明啊 ？OK 係咪？Therefore, right? Remember, marking scheme should only be read under the guidance of a teacher. Okay, or you are Form 6, you are very well versed in it. Okay, the main point is lower demand 係講緊個 demand 低咗啊 ，because the number of potential buyer will drop. Now in exam, okay, I would suggest do not just say potential buyers drop. At the reason 點解個 potential buyer 會跌啊 ？Because it will be harder to resell the flats. What does that mean? It means that speculation. Oh, here. Let me put it in the notes. Let me put it in the notes. 係嘛？頭先你見到 marking 講咩啊 ？The marking scheme says potential buyer decreases. Therefore, demand decreases. Therefore, prices lower. Okay, now let's add something. Why potential buyer would decrease? Because with the restriction, it is harder to resell the house, which means there will be fewer speculative buyers. 嗰啲投機嗰啲人啊，住嗰啲人梗係冇問題啦。投機嗰啲人會出事啊嘛，係咪買嚟炒樓嗰啲啊 ？Okay, there will be fewer speculative buyers. Therefore, there will be fewer potential buyers. OK， 嗱考試最好寫埋呢個，唔好淨係寫呢句。Remember, marking scheme is not for you to read， 係俾 marker 睇，所以佢唔使寫得咁清楚㗎。But you are student, write clearly。你唔好搏啊！你搏 marking 㗎嘛，會賴嘢㗎。OK， 係咪 ？Explain clearly because there are fewer speculative buyers， 少咗投機嗰啲人啊。OK， 少咗投機嗰啲人啊。Okay, let me pause here for 30 more seconds, then move on to the next question. 後面嗰條幾得意喎。Right? It's quite funny. The next question is rather funny. Good baby 啊嚇。OK，嗱 ，next question。OK，好啦，嗱，你睇咗個 source 先。OK，嗱，can I ask you to use 30 seconds to take a look at the source first？ Quite some history，有啲歷史啊都。So basically, the source says China is abolishing, back in 2014, abolishing the one-child policy。係啦，大家知道以前中國一孩政策㗎嘛，係嘛？原來2014年打後啊，取消咗一孩政策啊。Okay, no longer one-child policy. Now, people will have multiple children without without the need to pay extra tax. OK，好嘛？好，睇下啦噃。So here it says, Good Baby International 係咪啊 is the largest manufacturer and supplier of infants and children's products in China. OK，賣 BB 用品啊。Now without using a diagram, explain why the stock price of Good Baby would increase with the source tool。喂，呢個冇玩啊，好容易啫嘛，係咪啊？好啦 ，as more babies are expected to be born， 係嘛 ？To be born 係嘛？越嚟越多 BB 啦。The demand for baby products would be expected to increase。嗱，你見我全部講 expect 嘅呢度，因為佢問緊你 stock price。OK， 係嘛 ？The demand of baby product will be expected to increase. Okay, because of the because here the infant population, which is the the potential bias， 我哋用翻啲字啊，係嘛 ？Would increase 係咪頭先個條啊 ？potential buyer 啊嘛，咁呢度咪 potential buyer would increase 咯。Therefore, Good Baby profit is expected to increase in the future。即係第時佢生意好啦，係嘛 ？As people expect the profit to increase, the stock price would also increase。係嘛？你預期嘅生意好啊嘛，咁咪股票咪升咯。OK， as you expect their profits, their business to become better， 係嘛？ They are more confident, they're more optimistic about the future of the company. Therefore, stock price would increase. OK， 得唔得？嗱，since I have the past paper here， 不如我哋及下 marking 點寫啦，應該都大同小異嘅啫。OK， 好嘛？第幾條啊？第10條。OK， 10E。here 呢度有啲嘢啦，你見個 marking 都寫多咗㗎，我呢度都寫少咗係咪？好睇下啦。Here, let me migrate to the marking scheme here. Okay, it says here expect birth rate, expect increase in future demand 係咪？講緊佢 demand 上升啦。Expect to earn bigger profit. OK， 嗱呢度寫漏咗一句啊。And to distribute more dividend to shareholders. OK， 佢話點解買到啲股票啊？原來派到啲股息啊。嗱，but if you ask me, I think this sentence is redundant。大班人買股票唔係收息嘅兄弟，大班人買股票炒個價嘅啫。嗱 ，so I think this one I have my reservation whether this is worth 1 mark or not。你老吹嘅啫，邊個話買股票一定收股息㗎 ？In Hong Kong, in fact, most shares do not give out dividends。香港絕大多數股票係冇股息㗎。Okay, surprisingly。Okay， 好嘛 ？So the expected increase in future dividend would raise the demand， 係咪啊 ？As soon as people expect a change in one-child policy。Okay， 好嘛 ？I have reservation towards this sentence，but anyway， 係咪嗰年 marking 咁寫都冇辦法嘅？係咪嗰年 marking 咁寫都冇辦法 ？Okay， now can you take a screen cap very quickly? Then we move on to the next question。所以考評局啲人咧，有時都係活在自己世界嘅。Okay, finally, next question。好啦，最後啦，最後一條啦，搞唔掂啦。Okay, here, 2015. Here it says tobacco tax is an indirect tax. Okay, 嗱 ，for our purpose， 我哋唔好理住啦。嗱，你未學 tax 嘅 ，OK， 你未學 tax 嘅 indirect tax basically supply decrease。係咪 ？For now, for our purpose, you just need to know it's a supply decrease. OK， 好嘛？好啦。In addition to tobacco duty, the customs has made more effort to prevent illegal duty not paid。跟住佢問啦 ，Is it possible the QT of duty not paid cigarettes to increase？ 佢話會唔會有機會令到嗰啲私煙陰公人都死咗啦，係咪？私煙會上升咧？ Okay, with the aid of diagram, we need to explain the answer. So let's do it one by one。佢問得你有冇可能，係咪？咁即係有啲嘢要諗啦。Okay, let's think about from both sides. Okay， 好啦 ，on demand side, okay, as tax is imposed on the 我哋叫 legal 啦，係嘛 ？legal cigarettes， okay, cigarettes. The quantity transacted of transacted 算咗啲乜嘢 ？of legal cigarettes， 做乜嘢啊 ？would decrease。OK， 好啦 ，Lazar， 呢句你想寫啲乜嘢啊 ？Then legal cigarettes and the illegal cigarettes, what are they? As illegal cigarettes， 點解加 R 字去 ？And legal cigarettes are substitutes。咁堂見過好多次啦，係咪啊 ？The demand for illegal cigarettes would increase, leading to increase in quantity transacted of illegal cigarettes. This is on one hand。你一齊答完啦，未啊？未搞掂啊？ Okay, this is the demand side. Is there anything funny on the supply side? Yes. As more crackdowns are carried out, the supply of illegal cigarettes would drop， 會跌㗎嘛？係嘛？係咁打壓佢哋，係咁喺度掃檔。咁咪冇晒私煙咯，係嘛 ？The supply of illegal cigarettes would drop, which would lead to decrease in quantity transacted of illegal cigarettes. Okay, so here we have demand increase, we have supply decrease. So what is the condition? When would the QT increase? If the increase in demand is larger than the decrease in supply of illegal cigarettes, and the quantity transacted or duty 即 illegal 啦 not paid illegal cigarettes would increase 係咪？即係其實 D 升得大過 S 跌啫嘛，係嘛 ？Very normal, right? We have done it again and again and again and again and again， 做咗好多次啦呢啲，係嘛？嗱 ，finally 嗱，俾我 overrun 少少，好嘛 ？Let's draw here. Let me pause here for 30 seconds. 跟住我哋 overrun 少少，畫埋個圖就完啦。OK， 嗱 10 more seconds. Take a screen cap. 喂，差唔切嘅screen cap 到佢啊。嗱 ，don't worry. Direct text, indirect text. We're going to learn it in chapter 11. Don't worry. OK, finally to the graph. Now here, obviously, we are talking about the duty not paid cigarettes, right? 好嘛？嗱，記住啦，今次有冇好多 shift 啊 ？So make sure you leave some space for it to shift, right? So here, let's call this S1. Let's call this D1. 嗱，左右留啲空位啦 ，because we need to do the shifting quite a lot, okay? 好啦 ，obviously we have our P1, we have our Q1. Okay, we have a P1, we have a Q1. Here, we need the increase in demand to be larger than the decrease in supply. Okay, like this time, let me not use color to show you how to do it. Okay, 記住，我哋 demand 要升得多過多過 supply 一啲。So let's exaggerate. Let's say demand increased by this much. Assuming, right, this is this much increase, while the supply dropped a little bit only. Okay, wow, the supply dropped a little bit. 誒唔係喎，黐線，錯咗啲咩啊？呢幅圖 ？What is wrong? Okay, demand and supply. 係 sorry， 趕住落堂啦，倒轉咗嚟話，no， 冚掉重練，再嚟個。So sorry, so sorry. OK， 一陣間睇片嗰啲肯定笑緊啦，阿 Sir 你咁弱智嘅，係咪？你都知，黐線啊！趕住落堂添，有次好似呢啲咁唔係好對路嘅。OK here again， sorry 啊 ，demand supply 倒轉咗嚟話啊 ，such low level mistake by me。嚟多次，PQ again。So this 呢個係 demand， 黐線。Supply. Okay, we start with the original situation, P1, Q1, okay? Now we need demand to increase a lot. So let's do it this way. Let's say it shift by this much. 極誇張啦，係咪啊？ While the supply would only shift a little bit, okay? 呢度啦。Now later on, you would learn that when we shift, supply using tax is actually an upward shift. We call it taxation. But don't worry too much. 你而家唔好理佢住，係咪？ You can shift to the left as well. Okay? Taxation. Here, we call it taxation. So let's find the new point. You will see the new point is actually here. OK， 你發覺啦，新個點啦。Actually, Q2 will be larger than Q1, and not to mention, P2 would also be much larger than P1. 咁咪升咗咯，係嘛？ This is the case, right? This is the case. Now, better not to draw the arrow here. Better draw the arrow here for clarity purpose. OK， 咁咪升咗咯，係咪？ You see, supply only shift a little bit, while demand shift a lot. That would result in an increase in Q2. OK， 好嘛？ So this is how you draw the graph. OK， 好嘛？ With that said, we are actually done with this supplementary notes, and we are done with chapter 9. Okay, so boys, now, so what's the next step, right? The next step, I've made the chapter 9 homework already, but I need to proofread it a little bit. Okay, so maybe I will send the homework to you by tomorrow or tonight. Okay, come on. Now, so I want you to finish chapter 9 homework before the end of the special holiday so that I will mark it and give it back to you. Okay, now with all that said, all our supplementary lessons for chapter 9 would be done. Okay, 好嘛? So if you have any further question, okay, always you can WhatsApp me. Okay, if there's any update, I will also WhatsApp you and post it on Google Classroom. Okay, 好嘛? So boys, if you have no further questions, then we will end our lesson here today. Okay, see you then. Bye bye.